Hi, welcome to the October koha-US Cataloging Special Interest Group. I want to thank Fred so much for hosting last time at the
Point
last
of
minute.
point of clarification, Madam Host.
Oh, it's November.
Yeah, that one.
Well, thank you
And
all
thank
for
you.
attending the October one. Thank you, Fred, for hosting, and welcome to the November Cataloging Special Interest Group. If we edited, we'd fix that in post, but we don't. So
I'm sure Jason could.
he does enough.
We had this discussion at the last one. I have lots of other things on my plate, but I can't be bribed.
Yeah, actually, I've been going through the Jellycat catalog to see if they have a shark. Um, yeah,
Well,
you need another one.
I wanted to mention to everyone that there is a patch testing session going on as we speak today. So the announcement and the link to join the video meeting was posted to the main Koha list. If you didn't get it or didn't see it, shoot me an email and I will forward it to you. I'm going to put my email address in the chat. And the list archives for the main Koha list are also available on the Koha wiki. And it's patch testing, supportive environment, join, ask questions, even if you just want to tune in and learn. And that's going to go on, and I think for another 3 or 4 hours today from right now. And there was a question asked to the main Koha list and the koha-US list about quality control in cataloging. And Fred helpfully suggested coming today because, of course, we love talking about such things. And the question was, like, any automated processes or ways, possibly jQuery, to say, do any automated matching between the 260 and the 008 fixed field country codes. I imagine also the 264, the new field. Checking for presence or absence of important fields in bibs and item records, checking for agreement between item types and not for loan values. I would suggest too, maybe even like locations and not for loan values, because like we have a rare location and a reference location. Those need to be manually set to not for loan. And one thing I thought of was I tried to set in our frameworks which which mark fields I want to be mandatory in the bib records. And I thought I'd throw that out there and ask if anyone else had any ideas about these. Like, how do you do your quality control?
So on the third one about item type and not for loan, I don't have that exactly built out, but I'll put the link in the chat. I do have a lot of jQuery on my add item form that does stuff basically. So we have the way that our collection code shelf locations break down. Generally, if you pick a shelf location, it's going to go into a specific collection code. So like if you pick adult fiction, it goes into adult books. So in theory, you could adapt that for the item type not for loan. So like if you put it in an item type of reference and it needs to be a not for loan status, it's the same sort of logic there. So yeah, my code, and there's some examples in the link I just put in the chat about how I did that. I was trying to wrap my head around the 008 260 thing. I'm just like, you could probably do that, you would have to figure out how to parse it out so that it's picking the right piece of information from the 008 to compare to the right piece of information, the 260.
Yeah, my mind kind of boggled. I could see some things being easily standardized between, say, US states, because those tend to either have postal abbreviations or some sort of standard abbreviations, like California can be CALIF, or now with RDA, the entire state name spread out. So those could be kind of done. But my mind boggled at the amount of variation that could be if you're transcribing in the language of the item.
Right, and my brain directly went to dates because a lot of our dates don't match up. Like the 008 will have one thing and the C subfield will have something different, and then it doesn't sort correctly. So like, how do I get those years to line up when sometimes there's a C for copyright in the subfield C, and yeah, I think that would be a lot of massaging out the right information from those fields to then compare.
Yeah, because in the subfield C of a 260 or 264, you can just have the multiple dates. They're not broken out into separate 264s necessarily. Copyright date, publication date, reprint date.
Yeah, it's hard.
I mean, it's not impossible, but complex.
One other like quality control thing that I do on the item form that wasn't mentioned there, but is spaces, like spaces in the barcode, spaces in the item call number. So George wrote some jQuery for the call number, and I wrote some jQuery for the barcode, and then we swapped. So, but like basically, it'll strip out extra spaces before and after a barcode, so those can't be entered incorrectly. And like double spaces in the call number happens a lot, so it strips out those so that they sort correctly. So that's another not part of the email, but something that we do to try and keep the data clean at the point of entry.
That sounds super useful because call number sorting is important for paging.
Yes.
And yeah, I was also thinking about how is the data used? So how do we evaluate doing our quality control and prioritizing our quality control for what our users are actually searching and sorting for? And sorting on call number is so important for paging. And sorting by date is something that users really do, I think, especially with nonfiction, because they'll want something recent or bestsellers. They want something new by a particular author.
Is there a way to write some jQuery to get an alert saying, hey, your 008 date and your 260 don't match?
In theory, like it's what, like I was saying, like you can do an alert for anything, sure, but it's pulling that information and comparing it one-to-one is going to be really hard. You're going to have to know some heavy regex, which I don't, to try and like piecemeal out the 008 and then piecemeal out what's in the fields and make comparisons. Now, I think I wrote a SQL report for dates that does that sort of. So I don't know if it could be adapted to a jQuery helper. Have to think about that some more. But I don't think that report was anywhere near perfect either. So it would take some doing.
Even running the report and then changing it manually, like notifying you which ones need help, is part of the, I guess, solution, if you have time. But that's still quicker than touching every record.
Right, and you should be able to do like swaps and copies and stuff. Like if you ran the report, then you could export that to MarcEdit or whatever, or use the Mark modification template to do swaps and copies from one place to the other.
Is that report on the wiki?
Great question. Let me look.
I was just looking at the report wiki, and there is a section on the report wiki for quality control. So I put that link in the chat.
I don't see my exact report in the wiki, but there might be one on there. I'll do some digging. If it's not there, I'll post what I've got.
Thank you.
And one of my favorite sections of the report wiki follows the quality control section. Next is the catalogers gone wild section. So do check that out too. There's some good reports.
That in the save reports link from the reports screen in Koha, or is it a different wiki?
In our version of Koha, the link to the Koha reports library is under other.
Okay.
And then it's also in the sidebar when you run a report. There's a link over. Yeah, that's
okay. That's
one
the one
and
I
the
was
same.
thinking of. Okay, thanks. I just need to search for catalogers gone wild.
There's good reports.
Yeah.
Well, those are great ideas and great suggestions. And I think too, especially at least, up in the Northern hemisphere, we're going into winter, we're going into some heavy weather, that there's some opportunities for telecommuting that So does anybody have anything they wanted to bring to the group this month?
I have something that's somewhat related to quality control, actually. So I am working on, I'm hoping this is a realistic dream and not, I'm starting something that I'm not really going to be able to finish. I am coming up with templates for every item type that we have. So like microfiche, DVDs, videos. And I'm trying to, what's the standard leader 00678 fields that are applicable? What's the 33678 and then the 942C, which Koha really loves. How do I so I'm trying to create those templates, and I think I'm almost done. I'm in the I need you advanced catalogers to tell me what I did wrong before I turn these into, I know I'm going to create frameworks out of them, because that way people coming in, all they do is select, I have a DVD. Let me choose DVD. And I know they will not touch the leader, the 006, 7, and 8 ever again. All they'll do is change the framework. I get that. That's why I'm creating these, so that they don't all say book and sort as a book or filter as a book. That's driving me nuts. I'm trying to figure out, so I guess two things. One, what's a good format that as a user, so like Koha will have the framework, but I'm also wanting to create a tool that people can read to help and understand this is what's happening here. I also think what I'm going to do is create the advanced editor. Is it called a macro? Someone's already done it for one item type because I copied it and I'm like, oh, I should do this. That way, advanced editor people, all they have to do is select the item type from that. Does anyone know if I create it for the macro, will it transfer over to the frameworks, or do I have to actually put it in both places? I just thought of that question right now.
So coming up with the frameworks is awesome because they are actually shareable, and coming up with the macros is also awesome. They're shareable. There are some macros on the wiki, as you mentioned. I put links to OCLC's bibliographic formats and standards because that is a freely available resource that in the special cataloging guidelines section has some really useful guidelines for special types of publications, things like an electronic resource, an integrating resource, a microform, and points out that your special, what you typically have in an 008, an 006, 007, that sort of thing. And there are, for the advanced cataloging editor, I mean, I'd say who's doing your cataloging? You can supply things in your framework, and that's great for people using, I think, the basic editor, because that's what they're going to interact with. They're not going to be using macros. If you're doing a lot of this for your audience, or you're doing both, the people using your advanced editor are going to be using those macros.
So I've got like 2 people that would use the macro that are the advanced editor, or maybe 3, maybe up to 3 people now. The other 20 are going to be frameworks. So one of the things I'm getting ready to do, once I figure out, okay, I've confirmed these are the right fields, I'm going to pull everything out by item type and then mark edit, add those fields, edit those fields, all that fun stuff, and then put it back into Koha. Because I'm also needing to clean up the title indicators on probably at least half of our records, if not more, are either blank or wrong. So I finally figured out what's messing up our sorting and search results.
Oh, that is the classic example of why indicators are important.
I'm 80% certain that our problem is indicator related. And then the other 20% uncertainty, I think, is related to, we put the wrong item type in the leader, in the control fields. And if I clean those up, I will revolutionize. That's the goal. That's the dream. I think I'm in the right direction. I'll let you know whenever.
Yes.
It will be
let us know, and share your results too. I mean, it sounds like you're going to come up with some good default things that could be shared on the Koha wiki and possibly even at koha-US for sure. Off the top of my head, regarding 3XX fields, certain formats tend to have the same, like books tend to have the same 3XX field, monographs, the same 3XX fields. Periodicals tend to have the same 3XX fields, but when you have a visual materials record, it could be a photograph that's a sheet. It could be more electronic. It could be more, there's a lot of things. It could be there's a lot of things that go into visual materials. So do take a look at the, I don't think for each, it depends on your item types.
We've tried to make our item types very specific. So like we have an online journal and a print journal. Like we've separated those. One problem I've run into, we've separated a video CD from a DVD. And I can't figure out what's different in the field. Like everything I find is like, it's really the same thing. The only difference is in like the format that it would use, in which no one is going to take the time to do that. So the item type is more for the patron to know this is a video CD, not a DVD, but the control, I can't figure out it. so far, when I've researched, the control fields like the 6, 7, 8 are the same. The leaders the same. The 3, 3, 6, 7, 8 would be the same. I can't find in my research how they're different. I know they're different, and I know it'd be the coding, how it's recorded would be
Yes,
different.
you're going to have like different 538 fields of system requirements, your
Okay.
system requirements note. Some people put this information in a 300 as well, because it is important for a patron with a laptop. Do they have an old CD drive, or do they actually have a new DVD drive, or do they have a new, do you have a Blu-ray? They need a very new Blu-ray, DVD, CD drive.
Yeah, I think I need to put a note. This is helpful and this is very important. But with the understanding that, well, one, I don't think the librarian knows. And a lot of them don't. I mean, this is like this is a hat that they wear amongst their plethora of other jobs. And so that sort of detail, it's like, well, whenever someone comes and tells me, then I'll put it in, I'm fine. And I'm actually fine with that, as long as I'm like, we'll leave it empty. But whenever someone comes and tells you this information, or you accidentally figure it out because of something you did, please email me so we can put that in, after the fact. And some of it, I think they'll find out we don't have anything that holds the system requirement, so we should just get rid of it or archive it. And we send it to someone. We have a library. He calls it his magic room. He has every audio and video device created, I feel like, in the last 50 years. Because he's converting these little mini tapes that linguists went out into the village to record words and languages on, so that they could create alphabets and he's got all of the equipment to churn that into digital.
Yeah, our oral history collection has a multitude of audio formats. I think our museum in our library collection and archives has probably just about every format in the last certainly 120 years. I don't think we have wax cylinders, but we have, yeah.
And so where in the 300, do you note that?
Fred put in the, yeah, I got the Alan Lomax Ain't Been By to Record Me Yet blues. Yep, exactly. The Alan Lomax collection. Let me pull up one of our records here.
So, I mean, if Lauren's going to set a template, then you'd want to try to regulate the subfield, I guess, right? In the template somehow, if it's possible.
I would make those, so like the 538, I would make available, but it would be empty. Unlike the 3, 3, 6, 7, and 8 fields are available, but I'll actually put the text in there. Visual materials, I don't even think I can do it for maps as much as I want to, because when I started getting in there, it's like, okay, I can select one thing. I can't remember if it was in the leader. But
I have some really good recent, I've been doing a cartographic cataloging project, so I'll put some links to our cartographic records in the chat. I have, let's see, let me get a good recent audio.
Do you have a framework?
I do not do separate frameworks because we are, a catalog mostly on SEKLS, so everything goes into a default framework.
Lauren, so there's somewhere where you can actually like throw up notes so that when the person's entering stuff, they can reference that note and then identify the material properly or code it properly. Is that what you're saying?
So I'm gonna have a separate document that has that in it.
Oh, a separate document, just
My
something.
dream, but this is gonna require some jQuery or CSS or a language that I do not know to put it directly in Koha.
Mhm.
So whenever I'm finished, if the koha-US community wants to help get involved and help write that part, I'm just collecting that this is what it needs to say
Mhm.
and let someone else.
I've had that dream as well, Lauren, where you have like all the RDA stuff just there. You pick from a drop down and then it fills in the 3X's based on what you pick in the drop down. I think that could be implemented if we had that list of things and what the field should say.
So I've
The
already,
OCLC, I'm going to chime in here. The OCLC cataloging client comes with macros that assign your 3x fields. And I think that would be so easy to somehow copy translate.
Mhm. And there's a product called Macro Express, and that you can work with. I can't remember, which I've used a lot, but it's been years since I used it, so I can't remember the exact context. And I think there may be a cost for Macro Express.
Didn't someone do a presentation on macros at koha-US or KohaCon? It's in my list of things I really need to go back and look at.
I have my notes. Auto Hotkeys is third-party software that's open source and works on top of any text solution, my note
Okay.
says.
I only need to go back and listen to the conference.
There's some
Yes.
really good recordings.
Hey, I was there and I have to go back.
That's my fear, is I'm going to listen to it and then go, oh, I really need to listen to that again because I didn't understand half of what they told me. And then I'll get, 5 times later, okay, I think I got it. Just keep, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And I finally, that's why I love the KohaCons. People
Yes,
smarter than me share their story. When I'm done with this, it's going to be a presentation because I feel like I am entering into the deep end of the ocean. Sharks are circling and I need to share with people. This is how you avoid the sharks.
And the water turns bloody and like tomato juice, and suddenly you're in the Marinara Trench.
If you don't see me in March, it's probably because I died.
We won't let that happen. We will
No.
throw you many life rings. So Nelson, I'm not sure we've answered your question about the 300 field.
That's okay. That's okay. I have another project at some point once we're ready to go to something a little bit different. Shall I share?
Yes, please.
So last time, which was my first time to come to the cataloging SIG, I was working on match points on the bib records, and I was trying to do a match point without a subfield, which it turns out Koha cannot do. So I was trying to match on the 001 and the 003, and it doesn't work in this until the current version. Apparently the 22.11 might implement it.
Oh,
But
that's good to know because yeah, the 001 is so weird. It does not have a subfield.
so the batch of records that I have has the accession number is in the 001. And so what they said was what Joy and Jason, I can't remember. Lucas, anyway, said you need to here's the list of indexes. And yeah, it was Jason and Joy.
Oh, okay.
So here's the list of indexes, and you need to find. So what I took was you need to find an index with a subfield and work with that. So I identified 024A. And using Mark Edit, I copied the 001 into the 024, and then I appended it with the 003. So I've got an 024A that's a combination of 001 and 003. And then I tried to do a match point, and it still doesn't work. So I don't really know, you know, I feel like every micro step I take, there's like a block on things. I get the 500 error when I try to do the match point on that particular indexed field. So that's one issue that I've got, if anyone. And then the other issue is I've got in the item records, I've got in the same external batch, I've got subfields that are different from the subfields in Koha. And so like the call number is broken out into multiple subfields. And I wanted to try and, you know, aggregate those subfields into the single, whatever it is for Koha.
Yeah.
And I haven't been successful. I've been able to like move it, but I know there's like an append code that's native to Mark Edit maybe. So it's not necessarily reg edit, reg X, regular expressions. And but that to me is like something I can deal with a little bit later. It's really just trying to, before I load this monster batch of records into my catalog, I want to be able to get them back out and edit them and then put them back in and match them, if that makes sense. And then I'll be getting sequentially as this external organization catalogs stuff and provides these records with the 001. You know, I'm going to have to, it's a continual process. It's not a once-off batch that I'm dealing with. It's, you know, there's updates that I get that aren't going to be directly loadable in my version, which is 2111.
I think the Mark modification templates for records that you load might be your friend here.
Ah,
And one person I know who is an absolute wizard with them is Anne Ryan in New Zealand. She works at Wheelers.
okay.
I put in the chat, the item record call number field is the 952 subfield O, and it wants the entire call number in that subfield. I know Mark Edit is your friend for taking information in different subfields and putting it all together in one subfield. I've never done it. And I don't know about, I mean, I know with Mark Edit and Koha and Mark modification templates, it's really easy to have a bib record overlay, you know, take a copy of the bib record out, moosh it, play with it, put it back and have it overlay. I don't know about item records. I have no experience with that. Others in our group might. Oh, yes, Fred.
Yes, but it's not a happy story. And though it's my next, the project I've been working on, and maybe next after Nelson. And I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening with my camera. It's a fairly new one. It's supposed to autofocus and convert for light and zoom. Well, it doesn't zoom. Just pretend I'm here. Anyway, I don't know, should I describe what I'm working on now, or this sort of a
Maybe I can
side?
make sure so the Mark modification templates, how do I, I'm not sure if I've really investigated that.
Okay, what I was doing, I'm sorry.
Where is that in the?
Okay, so I'll just leap in and say I'm going to put information about our CatSig email list into the chat because Anne is on our CatSig email group. Join that. That's a good way to get her attention and to chat about your project and get more ideas with people who are on the email list who can't necessarily make our meetings. And the other thing I'm going to throw out there too is that the system administration CatSig might be another place to get some people more familiar with this higher level data management. And then, yeah, let's hear Fred's less than
Great.
happy story.
Yeah, go for it, Fred. Thanks.
Okay, I'm not sure if or if everyone really need a guitar for this one. I may be repeating myself, but some of you may not have heard this part. We have a collection from our book distributor, Rittenhouse, called the R2 collection. Their entire catalog, we get 3 uses, and then we either have to buy it or buy a copy or just not have it anymore. And it's really useful for books that get used maybe once every 5 years, because it all comes under our huge R2 payment. Well, I decided that cataloging them as ebooks doesn't really work because these are more ephemeral ebooks. And for various reasons, it would be a lot easier to divide it into ebooks that we have bought and licensed. We can have in perpetuity as long as, well, comparative perpetuity. And so I exported all the R2 books by item number, and then changed to let's see, the 942, the 952.8, and the 952Y to R2, and then tried to put it back in. And I had 5,100 items exactly, or books, excuse me. I managed to upload 5,000 of them, probably. And it was in the first 100 that there was a problem, and yeah, just stopped there until I got a 500 error. Yeah, I thought about, I could use mark modification templates for the bib records. For reasons I still don't understand, I couldn't do that with the item record, even though I was matching on, I think the 999C. I was still getting a lot of things that were books or journals, print journals, and I don't know why. So yeah, exporting and then importing back was the tedious, very tedious, but effective way to do it. Another problem is, I have records for all of the R2, 952 records for all the books. I wanted them to be replaced. Some of them replaced, some of them didn't. I don't know why. So now I have to go through 5,100 books if I ever get the first 100 sorted out, and see which one has 2 almost identical item records. The accession date is different, so I can't do delete duplicate data in MarcEdit. And besides, it went in, but they acquired the extra item records when I was uploading them. It's changed, so I'd have to export them again. I don't want to export them and not have them come back. And that was preceded by upgrading to 2205, but you heard, if anyone saw my story on that, that took a while too. Because every single one of my tables was compact, and they all had to be changed to dynamic. There really isn't any lightning here. I'm not sure why I keep flickering. Anyway, that's what I've been working on as far as Koha.
Fred,
Hmm.
I wonder if at your list you said like 100 loaded or so, and then it bailed out or it quit.
When I tried to upload all the 5,100,
Yeah.
nothing happened. So I started splitting it into first 100, second 100, third 100. Um, and they all uploaded. I was doing all of this on a test instance. So I really hate working with the production site for things like this. But, so I haven't gone back to look at the first 100 because some other things are coming in that I have to work on.
But they all loaded, so it's not like you had a bad record that it hit the bad record and then
Yeah, I
aborted.
think that's what happened. Somewhere in that first batch of 100, are my fingerprints. No, sorry, Arlo Guthrie. Somewhere in that batch of 100, there is at least one bad record. So I need to put it into 50, see if those upload. Hit the next 50. Nope. Okay, 25. Nope. Keep cutting it in half till I find the bad record because I've skimmed them all. They look okay. And of course, these all went into Koha perfectly. They just haven't come out and then go back in perfectly. There are a lot of mysteries in life. And now I have to do that the second time for some surgery videos, which probably shouldn't be cataloged as ebooks. By the time I get back to this, we'll have forgotten how to do it.
Document, document, document. Share the documentation, share the documentation, share the documentation.
Yes.
And then do a conference presentation. I
Sorry, I
wish I
didn't mean
had
to.
some ideas for you, Fred, but you are boldly going where I have never gone before. I did put a link in the chat to Bywater Solutions has a 22.05 upgrade hub website they've created, and they're going to be adding resources to that. And there's a lot of information there. I'd also point out to people that the Koha community newsletter, which is on the Koha website, every month comes out every month and has links to really helpful videos, blog posts, that sort of thing. I'll put a link to that in the chat. And there's also a couple of bugs I wanted to call people's attention to. One of them is number 13600, which is signed off, and it's fixing issues with 8XX fields not showing up if there's no 4XX field. These are series fields, and 8XX is where the series is traced. It's the added entry, and the 4XX is the transcription field. But sometimes you don't have a 4XX. Like you've got a book, which is the 5th one in the series, featuring this fictional detective, but they don't have a series title page or anything, but everybody knows it's a series. So you're going to have a note, like a 500 field saying the 5th Detective Barkston novel with the dog detective who solves his case and always gets his cat. And then that's going to be traced in an 8XX. So that's one area this shows up. And another bug, which is push to master, is the very exciting add a clear cataloging module homepage. And I know we're all at the edge of our seats about that one.
Absolutely. I keep sliding down, but here.
Right.
Oh, I have more questions.
Yes.
First of all, I know very little about indicators, except that Heather, you think they're important. They probably are, but I'm still a vast body of knowledge I know nothing or little about. You've helped. What is the difference between a, let's say, slash and a zero in an OCLC record or a MARC record? Or is there one?
In an indicator field,
Yes.
indicators are always numeric or blank. Period. End of statement. That if you have a slash in an indicator field, that's a problem.
Okay. Second is when I get records for new books, I usually take out, let's see, the OCLC fast entries and the French 650, the German, and those are usually, let's say 650 and the indicator is 07 or 06. Can I assume that those are always going to be ones I don't want? Or at least 06. I know 07 is sometimes used for LCGFT, which is helpful.
I'm putting a link to the Mark 21 bibliographic format for the 6XX fields. And in your case, we're starting to, you're going to want to look at the 650s and the 655s. And there are subfields in those fields that refer to, there are, I'm getting ahead of myself. There are indicators, for example, in second indicator 7 that refers to a subfield within the field. So indicator 7 says the source specified in subfield 2, and in subfield 2 you're going to have an abbreviation, so you're going to be matching on both those, but some second indicators do indicate the thesaurus. For example, the subfield 5 is Canadian subject heading, subfield 6 is Répertoire des vedettes métiers, and those if they're assigned accurately.
Yeah, I mean, I used to go through in Mark Edit, take out the 6.5 asterisk, take away the subfield lines with the subfield 2 fast or 2 something else. There's also GTT, which is German, I think.
Yeah,
and
and
there may
those
be
are
a faster
fairly
way.
reliable. Well, these are things you can set your, now I haven't experimented with this, but you can set a mark modification template to strip these fields upon import.
Oh,
That's good.
And that would be something that would be great if it could be shared on the Koha Wiki for all of us who probably do similar things, because stripping out subject headings in thesauri that you don't use is a very typical thing. And stripping out 024 call numbers, or I mean 024 numbers that you don't use is a very typical thing, but I would urge caution with the 024s, because like as we heard from Nelson, some people need to use those in creative ways. And so you have to be careful upon your record import that you're using the right template for your right if you're doing anything with control number fields.
yeah, generally, if there's a reason to take it out, I do. If I don't understand what it does, but it's not harming anything, and I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, that's a very good practice. We also do strip out the fast headings because they tend to really dilute our keyword searching, especially if someone in our Maritime Museum cataloging is looking for, I want history of ships. It's like, oh, we've already got a lot of those terms showing up in the authority controlled headings.
Yes.
Jason popped something in the chat. Oh,
I've been playing with the match point. I was able to get my system to match on the 024A with these settings in the match point.
Ah,
But I will say that my test server is running 2205. So that may be why it worked for me and not you.
thanks so much, Jason. That's a ray of hope anyway.
Match point is the one you do in record matching rules. Okay, yeah, I've got it to do 999C, which helps me. And let's see if I can upload a picture. Let's see if I can find the picture.
that's brilliant, Jason. I would actually
Actually, let me
really
s-
encourage you to add that to the documentation.
Well, Bywater has Joy was pointing out, they had 1 or 2 videos or how-tos on the match points as well. But I think it was more like along the lines of ISBN.
Okay, where
Some of
did
the
it go?
basics.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a pitch here for actually adding to the main Koha manual. It's not impossible, and the people who handle it are super friendly. I asked a lot of newbie questions, but adding an image and how to do things like this, getting it in the official manual really helps people along the way.
Would you, along with stripping things out, that's something that's been on my mind too. And so, for instance, in these records, external records, I've got an 029. Is that something I would want to hang on to as an example? And an 010.
Ooh, the 010 you want to keep. The 010 is an incredibly important field. That's the Library of Congress control number.
All right. Okay.
Very widely used. The 029, I don't think that is actually part of the Mark 21 format. I'm looking at it and I'm not seeing an 029.
Oh, okay.
It might be something, let me pop over to OCLC bibliographic formats and standards. It might be something OCLC defined.
So it's like prefaced with NLGGC. It's a repeatable field, NZ, and then the other one's AU.
Yeah,
It is
they
in the
sound familiar.
OCLC bibliographic formats and standards, and put that here. It is, my husband who's right here and who's also a cataloger says, oh, undefined standard number.
There you go. There you go. So that would be, you could probably strip something like that out.
Yeah, as long as you're
yeah.
sure that the source isn't putting in information you want. Yeah, there's another field. I'm gonna pull that up, which is really useful for mapping numbers into that you're not sure if you want to delete or not.
Okay, I'm looking at an OCLC record I got through Rittenhouse. A few, and yeah, they all have 029s. I don't know what they do, but yeah, all my records do.
Okay, the 035 field is really useful for system control numbers for other systems besides yours. And do take a look at whether or not your Koha installation is actually using this, because a lot of people have their Koha profiled to actually use this field for system control. A lot of people don't. If you don't, that's a good place to map unused numbers that you're not sure if it's going to be useful in the future or not.
So like I could play with that instead of the 0224. Is that what you're suggesting?
If your 024 is working for you, use your 024. The 024 is great.
Yeah, well, it didn't work for me on that, but maybe mine isn't. Maybe I could just play with the 035 in the match point
Yeah,
area.
the hardest part for me was, yeah, okay, so what index am I using to do this?
Yeah,
Is
the
for mine, yeah,
024 has indicators that are important. And that might be something to check because the 024 also carries, according to the indicators, universal product codes, international standard music numbers, that sort of standards. And the 035 has completely blank indicators. So the 035 might be more
I see.
flexible, easier, since it's not going to be stumbling or needing or requiring these indicators or possibly causing any validations. I don't know.
I see.
Well,
Well,
it looks like it is indexed. It's
Yep.
got other control number as its index, so you might be able to match on that.
well, so on that link that you sent Jason last time, the indexing, there's no 035A. So it's just
Right.
another situation like the 001 where there's no subfield.
You're
That's
right.
That's why I had to go to, well, I was choosing to go to 024 because there's a subfield that's indexed. The A is indexed.
you could add a subfield 035A,
You could, but it's not indexed
but yeah,
by default. Yeah, it's not indexed out of the box in Koha.
right.
That's so weird to me that the 035A is not indexed out of the box.
Yeah, there's a lot of them where there's no subfield defined. Like, yeah. There's a lot like Fred's 999C is.
Yeah, because that's an important number that's the number we use for overlaying.
Yeah, I'm not sure the difference between the 999C and D practically. They're always the same in my catalog.
They're the same in my catalog too, but I know I use the C and I leave
Yeah.
the D alone.
But the 99, that's assigned by Koha.
Yes.
Yeah, so I can't like put an external number in there and because that.
No,
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend playing with that at all. It's assigned by Koha and it's important for the construction of your stable record URLs, your permalinks.
Okay.
yes, what I'm using it for is taking stuff out of the catalog and then putting it back in and hoping that it will update because it found duplicate 999 records.
Okay.
So for example, when I'm adding subject headings to something because they didn't have it before, or in my long depressing story, changing an item type.
That's where you're taking them out and then updating it, mark edit, and sticking it back in.
Yes.
Mhm.
And if you, I mean, another option is if you're set up as a Z target, you can hook into mark edit that way. So like you bring them into Koha, then go up to mark edit, pull your records into mark edit, and then it knows how to push that data and overlay it back. But that's, I mean, it's the same sort of thing. I think it's using the 999 in that case too to get it back into Koha.
Yeah. But yeah, I think I'm using 1711 for the author's catalog, and I think I'm indexed or sorting by 097, right? Indexed 097, I think. Yeah, there isn't one. There isn't my catalog.
Uh-huh. May I ask one last clarification with Lauren? So you said the indicators that when that's messed up, it's messing up the sorting on your return list. Is that the issue? And when it's item type, it's messing up the faceting on the left.
Yes.
That's kind of what the implications are for the patron.
Yes. I'm not sure. Well, and we even have a lot of records that are missing the 008, which is also messing up the sorting. Koha doesn't believe it's a record if it doesn't have a 008. It like puts it at the bottom of the list.
Oh.
And so I've got to put like, there's enough that are like that sort of thing that somehow, I guess the earlier versions of Koha let you do anything. Because I don't think the new ones would let me do that. Like, I think it would go, hello, something's wrong.
Yeah, the most of the required 008 fields are required in the default frameworks now.
Yeah. In the leader.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
some of
Oh,
them
and the
don't even have
leader.
a leader.
Oh,
Yes, I will say that when I was switching from that other one, Horizon, to Koha using 3.12, I think there are a lot of fields that I should have included and they're mandatory, but didn't, and I could upload them, especially the 942. But now when I go back and try to edit one of those records, it's going to say, nope, you can't do this. You have to put in this. I didn't know what I was doing. I did it anyway.
The 942C is also in the later versions of Koha. It shows this beautiful little icon in the bibliographic record on the search results and in the bibliographic record, which for a patron, that's what they're going to look at. They're looking at both that little picture of the icon of what the item type is and the title. And
Yeah.
the new records, it's mandatory. Whatever framework you're using, it's got to have that 942C. I made it. We're not
yeah.
going
And those visual icons are so important. For
so
example,
helpful.
dyslexic patrons, those who are text challenge or low vision, the icon will be more recognizable visually.
So, well, and before we had several libraries that wanted to use it, and the leader produced this which we used, but we've now discovered in using that we assigned the wrong leader.
Oh.
So thanks. So that's part of this project is I'm going to remove the wrong one. But now that I can, because we're using the 942C for that icon display instead of the material type that's identified in the leader. I think it's the leader and so our reprint articles are the main ones that we finally figured out. Actually, that's a monograph item. And the item, the 942C is a reprint article. We have a lot of those where they pulled them out to help people, or they just got that one little, they just got the article, probably because it's the author's copy. The author gave it to the library. It's now in a file drawer somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, they're not using the articles because they don't know that they exist, or they think that they're a book. If you're looking for an article on a shelf, you're never gonna.
Right. And we're back to quality control. It's all connected.
That sounds like something you could change in your batch record modification.
I can. I'm trying to decide for my item type stuff. Would I be better to do the batch modification, like create that instead of pull, and then just use Mark Edit to fix my indicators for my title
Mm,
and
Yeah,
author.
indicators, I think you have to use Mark Edit because I
Yeah.
don't think that the
Yeah.
Koha batch modification
Mm-mm.
tools or indicator are aware yet. We have to work
Well,
on that.
There's too many, like there's too many without authors or with author. Like we still use the 100s. We haven't moved them all to the 700s. So that first indicator is important. And then I've yet to figure out if the title has the word "the" in it, like even if it's in the middle, they put a 4.
Oh dear. Okay.
So it's skipping the first 4 letters
Yes.
of the word. That's a full word. And I'm like, no wonder you're not finding it.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking about sorting, and that's that second indicator in the 245 field. And I know we're way past the top of the hour, but I have to throw out there that moving 1XX fields to 7XX fields for standard is a non-standard operation, but a lot of places find it very useful, especially if you don't have catalogers on staff, because you just don't have to try to explain to people the archaic concept of main entry and why some of the personal authors and corporate authors, et cetera, are a 1XX rather than a 7XX. So that's a very common cataloging solution. And in an automated environment, it displays a little differently, but a lot of users, it doesn't matter to them.
Do you know if Koha sorts them differently?
I
That's what I'm
haven't
trying to figure out.
experienced a difference in sorting, but it certainly displays differently.
Okay.
oh dear.
That isn't necessarily a bad thing. And you know, I mean, if you have all of your bodies, if you're only using 7XX fields, all your displays are going to look the same, right? It's just that
Yeah.
there's no weight given to one of them appearing.
Okay.
And this may be just in my version.
So like for additional authors.
Right.
Mhm.
I would say if
Primary author.
play with this in a demo, go to one of the demo instances that's available. I know Bywater has a demo, and mess around with some of the, go ahead and edit some of the records. Move the 1XXs to set, take a look at some records with 1XXs and how they display. Change those records to 7XXs and take a look at how they display in these out of the box demos rather than playing with your own catalog. And let us know what you find out.
Or make a copy of your catalog and play around with that. Not sure how many backup copies I have going back a week, month. Okay, I've gotten this far. Make a backup.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and thank you all. This is great. See you next month.